When I go outside to look, there's a moment of quiet where I just go and take everything in.
The ATS, or Antarctic Treaty System, was designed to protect the continent of Antarctica while utilizing the empty space for scientific advancements. That means that every country who has signed the treaty can use the frozen continent for research and development as long as they follow the rules of the treaty. Basically, it states that, in the interests of all mankind, that Antarctica shall continue forever to be used exclusively for peaceful purposes and shall not become the scene or object of international discord. The minerals found in Antarctica can't be mined either, except for the purpose of scientific research. It also prohibits military actions except those taken in the name of science that don't endanger any other part of the treaty and that don't include nuclear explosions or the disposal of nuclear waste. Territorial claims are also held in abeyance. That basically means they're ignored. The environment of the Antarctic is mostly frozen wasteland, with winds exceeding 198 miles per hour. With 98% of its area covered with ice and snow, the Antarctic continent reflects most of the sun's light rather than absorbing it. The extreme dryness of the air causes any heat that is radiated back into the atmosphere to be lost instead of being absorbed by the water vapor in the atmosphere. During the winter, the size of Antarctica doubles as the surrounding seawater freezes, effectively blocking heat transfer from the warmer surrounding ocean. Antarctica has a higher average elevation than any other continent on Earth, which results in even colder temperatures. In a nutshell, this means that Antarctica is the coldest, highest, windiest, driest, and iciest continent on Earth. This area, inhospitable as it is heavily protected by the treaty system and its signed parties. Both land, ice, and ocean are defended from pollution, radiation, and other bad habits of humanity. The Antarctic Treaty Area includes over 20 million square kilometers of the Southern Ocean, and so special measures are taken to protect the waters included in the treaty. The International Maritime Organization in 1990 designated these waters a special area. The adoption of special mandatory methods for the prevention of sea pollution was required by all parties of the ATS. Oil, noxious liquid substances, and garbage in the Antarctic Treaty Area cannot be dumped into ocean waters. This protection extends from the Antarctic shelf to 60 degrees southern latitude. The discharge of sewage is heavily limited as well. As for the ice and land of the continent, radiation is minimal to non-existent as nuclear waste disposal and other nuclear projects are prohibited. The rare flora and fauna of the Antarctic, mostly including penguins and tardigrades, which are microscopic organisms that can go 10 years without water and can live happily in temperatures down to absolute zero, along with Belgica antarctica, which is a species of flightless midge common to the continent of Antarctica. It's also the only insect on the continent. Now you may be thinking that there isn't much to look after, but the fact that wildlife can indeed survive in such conditions is proof enough that there is life to be protected. ATS is quite determined to keep all native creatures safe, and it was decided long ago that activities in the Antarctic Treaty Area are to be planned and conducted in a way that would limit their impacts on the environment and on any dependent or associated ecosystems. In this way, the environmental impact of the presence of humans in Antarctica is contained and controlled, minimizing damage and destroying the possibility of pushing any native species into extinction. The problem with the ATS is the fact that it isn't very widespread. Not many people know of it outside of consultative parties or scientific sponsors, nor are other zones protected in such an inclusive manner. If more people knew the gritty details of the treaty system, maybe similar rules would come into power in other delicate ecosystems all around the world. As you probably guessed, there aren't many humans in Antarctica. It's not exactly an ideal vacation spot, what with the powerful winds, lack of heat and humidity, and the tendency for powerful and dangerous blizzards. Whiteouts are also a big pain in the neck. When the sky and ground are the same shade of grey or white and can't be told apart, even the native species of insects or penguins get pretty confused. But the humans that do live in this dry desert are actually pretty content with their current positions. The land is free of radiation or pollution in all forms, so even if the air is dry enough to hurt when you breathe, at least it's clean and fresh. The water is pure when it's melted from the snow or taken and filtered from the ocean. There are almost zero contaminants of human origin, and it's in plentiful supply. The land also holds a kind of terrible beauty. There's no life to be found with the naked eye, save for packs of penguins on occasions, but the pure white of the snow, along with the towering mountains of ice and the stars that can actually be seen, as opposed to the blank skies of the city skyline, make it a rare beauty. But what kind of social struggles are present in Antarctica? Survival is the foremost. There are many regulations in place meant to protect the braver ones who go out to explore the frozen lands on their own, but it will always be extremely dangerous, and teamwork is key to staying alive. People of all countries in Europe, in Asia, and North America work together to ensure peace, survival, and of course, their main goal: scientific advancements and discoveries. There are rivalries to be sure, but mostly people aren't concerned with personal agendas. Really, it's a first. Before the Antarctic Treaty System, people living in Antarctica were hostile towards each other. They all wanted the dry continent for themselves, for military purposes, those of a scientific or medical pursuit, or simply to claim the bragging rights of owning such a huge piece of land. However, they soon realized that they couldn't get much done at all, if all they did was backstab each other, so they quickly agreed to the treaty system. Today, it's in full effect, and people are happy to have it. Of course, each country signed into the treaty has its main base of operation, in which dwells people of the same nationality, but going between the forts isn't too rare if you're called for a consultation, and many other buildings host a number of different peoples. The main goal of the treaty is, after all, cooperation in the pursuit of scientifically bettering humanity. The treaty doesn't really affect people outside of Antarctica, but it's always nice to hear that your country can play nice with others and be better off because of it. Countries who usually glare at each other over the proverbial fence are now getting along swimmingly, and it's thanks to the brute political strength of the ATS. If you want to get in on the Antarctic action, you better follow the rules. And so countries who once hated each other's guts are now smiling and chatting over morning coffee. Even though this strange effect is because of the treaty, political occurrences outside of Antarctica are also affected, however minute. People are less likely to combat each other if their compatriots are getting along. This means that the signed members of the ATS are actually getting along for once if the situation allows it. However, no one will admit to being influenced by the ATS, since its main goal is to keep the Antarctic peaceful and its inhabitants cooperative. The treaty doesn't hold much sway over other parts of the political web that covers the world, but what it does control is the southern continent, and it does so quite effectively. Not only does it heavily promote the exchange of information with all states involved in Antarctica, it also easily prohibits projects that would damage the ecosystem and those related. Even the United States, a militarized nation, keeps its army off the frozen continent. The consultative parties of the treaty can also designate observers to carry out inspections of all areas of Antarctica, including stations, installations, and equipment, and they're fully capable of inspecting all ships and aircraft that land in Antarctica, along with any personnel involved. Truly, the ATS is fully ecumenical when it comes to protecting the Antarctic, which is its primary function anyway. The consultative parties are those who can participate in consultative meetings, in which they look over the treaty and the current goings-on of the countries involved in the Antarctic. They look for possible loopholes they can fix in the treaty system, or actions that can be taken to update or improve the treaty itself. The original 12 were Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Chile, the French Republic, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, the Union of South Africa, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the United States of America, those who were in Antarctica in the years 1957 and 1958. They were soon joined by more than 30 other countries. Obviously, there was a lot of power plays going on at first, especially between the USA and the USSR, mainly because the USA wanted to completely exclude the USSR from anything and everything. This was around the time of the Cold War, after all. Today, all parties are at least peaceful towards each other. Obviously, there isn't much of a local economy in the Arctic, and with the ATS in power, not much can be done to help it grow. Many think that this is a good thing, as strip mining and overfishing are trendy nowadays. Fishing is the only large-scale commercial harvest that's actually currently going on in the Antarctic Treaty area, now that sealing and whaling have pretty much stopped completely. The major negative effects of these fisheries include potential for overfishing, effects on predator populations, mortality of non-target species, and the destruction of habitat. Even with the ATS in place, major fishing companies still manage to get their fair share of fish and krill, and then some. Still, this drives the economy of neighboring countries, though not that of the Antarctic. That isn't much of a problem, as the Antarctic isn't a place where money is an issue. The people there are much more concentrated on discovering new and incredible things in the name of science. The overfishing that seems to be occurring on their shores is of particular interest, however. Many of the scientific studies are done on the continent itself, along with its flora and fauna and their habitats and ways of life. If the researchers run out of fish to study, it will pose a pretty serious problem. The economies of the world aren't their concern, though they are important to the businessmen and women who are in charge of the fisheries. Much of their income comes from the fish taken from the Southern Ocean. Many countries, notably the consultative parties of the treaty system, are fighting against these large-scale fisheries. Australia in particular is concerned, and the Arctic Division of their Department of Sustainability, Environment, Water, Pollution, and Communities is trying to educate their people while driving for a permanent solution to protecting the marine wildlife of the Antarctic. The economy will definitely survive losing the fish taken from the cold waters of the South, and it's one of the few places that still has areas completely untouched by humanity. However, at this rate, the drive to make money will overtake the drive to preserve and protect our natural world. At least, what's left of it. The true purpose of the Antarctic Treaty System is to protect the southernmost continent from actions taken by humanity that will harm the local flora and fauna, the ecosystem, and those that touch it. its secondary purpose to allow countries to use areas of the continent for research and development of a non-nuclear, non-military nature. The secondary purpose is also to promote the sharing of crucial information that could lead to a breakthrough in medicinal science or astrological research. Many projects are internationally coordinated and supported without any home turf issues. Antarctica is the only place in the world with such a system in place, and one of the only areas left mostly untouched by humanity. Protecting it is key to improving humanity's many ways of life, and though doing so is complex and riddled with potholes, the consultative parties meet annually to try and improve the system, to attempt to influence other countries to adopt similar measures that would encourage cooperation without borders.